What if I told you you could form a U.S. business and get a U.S. bank account without ever stepping foot in the United States? I'm Jonathan Finiak. I'm an attorney, and I focus on asset protection, entity structuring, and privacy for LLCattorney.com. I'm the lead attorney here. Today, I'm sharing the exact process foreign entrepreneurs use to establish U.S. businesses and get bank accounts. And that's something that most formation service companies can't help with or won't tell you about. You're watching this from outside the United States. You probably encounter roadblocks trying to break into the American market. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what you need to do to overcome the challenges legally and efficiently, and also know what it's gonna take to get started. Because I think at the end of the day, there is a decision point here for you. Does it make sense to form a business in the US? Most entrepreneurs say yes, but in your case, you may not even need to. So let's get started. Let's start with addressing the three major obstacles non-US residents, and we call them non-resident aliens, not aliens from another planet, but outside the United States, they face when they are forming a US business. These could be insurmountable if you don't have the right guide and you're not working with the right partner. The result is that many foreign entrepreneurs, they waste a ton of money and a ton of time in failed attempts to get something started, right? They get scammed, hundreds or thousands of dollars, wasted money, and they have to give up on their U.S. business dreams. So let's walk through here, right? There's a solution. Let me walk through the complete solution for foreign entrepreneurs. Number one, you need a U.S. business address and registered agent. Every LLC needs a registered agent. That's a person or a company designated by the company to receive legal documents on behalf of the company. You could, if you're a U.S. resident, be your own registered agent, but you need to have an office. You need to have a place where someone who's suing the company can show up with legal documents and say you're being sued. They can't do that, right? The U.S., for an LLC, they want to make it easy to sue a company. So you can't put down a foreign address for that. You need to hire someone or some company, hint LLC attorney, who can actually receive and handle that service of process, that designated address for those legal documents to be delivered. At LLC Attorney, we provide both the registered agent services and a physical address in all 50 states. Boom. That means you'll have a legitimate U.S. address for all your business correspondence, and you'll comply with the registered agent laws. The next problem you may face is getting an employer identification number for your company. Obtaining an EIN for a company is different depending on whether you have a Social Security number or an ITIN, individual taxpayer identification number, or you don't. Most people outside the United States don't have a Social Security number or an ITIN. And so they throw up their hands. They say, I can't obtain an EIN for my company. That's not true. You can obtain an EIN for your company even if you don't have an individual taxpayer ID number or Social Security number, but it takes some additional documentation and it can't be done online. You can't apply online. That form, that document, that application needs to be submitted either by mailing it to the IRS or it needs to be faxed to the IRS. The form is also potentially more complicated if you don't have a Social Security number. So our service includes obtaining an EIN for your company, getting that application to the right place, getting your EIN application done correctly so that you can begin the process of opening up that bank account for your company. The key difference between these two ways of obtaining an EIN is the processing time, right? If you have a Social Security number or an ITIN, then it's almost like that. You can do it in a snap. If it is someone who does not have a Social Security number or individual taxpayer identification number, then it can take weeks for the IRS to process that request. We have no control over what the IRS does, and who knows how long the IRS is going to take, but it can take weeks or even potentially months to do that. One potential solution is for you to obtain an ITIN number, an individual taxpayer identification number, when you know you're going to be starting your company. You can get that by applying through the IRS. And you can do that today, right? You may not have any tax obligations. You may not be ready to start your company, but you can obtain that individual taxpayer identification number now. One of the things to keep in mind is if you are forming your U.S. entity and you are going to be, in a lot of cases, you're going to be creating U.S. source income, you are going to need that ITIN anyway. So if you can get that ITIN number earlier in the process, it's actually going to streamline the process of obtaining an EIN for your company. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. U.S. banking solutions. This is where a lot of entity formation companies fall short because they don't have a great relationship with a financial partner. We've partnered with a leading financial institution that specializes and accounts for foreign-owned U.S. businesses. That means you can open up a U.S. bank account remotely without ever visiting a U.S. branch. You don't have to make calls and have failed applications and go through all of those steps because we have a special relationship and we have something called an API that allows us to transmit your information confidentially to the bank so that you can get that bank account for your business opened up very quickly. There are some restrictions. There are some countries which are not permitted, but for the most part, we're going to be able to open up that bank account for your business even though you've never set foot in the United States. I try to be clear. I try to clear up misconceptions about what you need to do, and I think there's a lot of false information out there. Misconception number one is that someone might say, I need to visit the United States in order to form my U.S. LLC. Absolutely false. You can complete the entire process, form your company remotely with it now not ever setting foot in the United States. Another misconception is that you need a U.S. partner, right? That's absolutely not true. You can be the 100% owner of your U.S. LLC as a non-resident alien or foreigner, right? Another is that you're going to pay double taxes. Not necessarily, right? International tax can be complicated, right? But there are, depending on the source of the income, depending on the location of the taxpayer, depending on treaties between the companies, depending on the type of income and the type of business being conducted, there may be no tax due. There likely are reporting obligations, but that does not necessarily mean that there are going to be tax payment obligations. So something to absolutely keep in mind. There may not be any additional tax burden depending on your particular situation. Misconception 4 is that you're not going to be able to accept payments from U.S. customers. This is what I talked about earlier. If your customers don't need you to be a U.S. entity, right? Then you maybe don't even have a reason to be in the U.S. You can just have them send the payments to your foreign bank account. But if you want to accept payments from U.S. customers and those customers want your business entity to be a U.S. business entity, then with the right U.S. bank account, you can absolutely accept payments from both U.S. customers and, if you want it, from foreign customers. So that one is a real misconception or a falsehood. And the other one is going to be that the last one, the fifth misconception, is that the formation process is different for foreigners or non-resident aliens. And the surprising thing is it doesn't matter, right? The states do not care. They don't care where you're from, whether you're from, Tajikistan or you're from Brazil or you're from Iowa. The process is the same for forming an LLC. You just have some additional complexity related to getting that employer identification number and on the banking side. But the formation process is going to be identical. Let's go through the process. There's some decisions you need to make. And this is going to clear up the decisions, your sort of decision tree. And the first one is going to be choosing the right state in which to form your LLC. Some states are more foreigner-friendly than others. And I've done other videos on choosing the right state for your business. And in that video, I talk about, well, if you're going to be operating in a particular state or on real estate in a particular state, I'm assuming as a non-U.S. person, your business is all virtual, right? You're providing the services from another country. Maybe you're providing them to U.S. people, or maybe you're providing the people in other countries, just using the United States as a place to sort of show the strength of the company. Well, you can form the LLC in those cases in any state you want, and then it really behooves you to pick the state that's best for privacy, tax advantages, and asset protection. And really, Wyoming, hands down, is the best choice. A lot of foreign individuals feel like they need to form their company in Delaware, but Delaware is expensive, the privacy is not as good, it can be complicated, it costs more, and there's potentially tax disadvantages to it. And so Wyoming, for most non-U.S. persons, is going to be the perfect state for you. There's other ones people talk about. Nevada, very similar to Wyoming, but more expensive, right? And so the advantage of choosing a state like Wyoming is going to be really head and shoulders above any other state you could choose. The next step is going to be forming your LLC. And the formation process itself is the same for everyone. Doesn't matter where you're from. You have to file your articles of organization within the chosen state, and then you've got to receive a LLC, a certificate of good standing. You know, typically you're going to be able to form your LLC within a day or two. Some states vary. It may take longer. Delaware is notorious for taking a long time to form the companies, but our guarantee, the LLC attorney guarantee, is that your documents will be filed with the state in 24 hours or less. And we're hitting about 99.7% of those filings are happening within that 24-hour period. The next step is you want to use this LLC, you want to do banking, you've got to apply for that EIN. And so this is where that process can differ for non-resident aliens who do not have an ITIN and people who are have Social Security numbers or ITINs. So if you don't have either of those, then you apply for an EIN. It's a paper process. It has to be faxed or it has to be mailed into the IRS. You got to make sure you get it to the right IRS office as well, depending on which state your entity is formed in. And that process can take some time. The IRS varies in how long it is taking, but it can be a bit of a longer process when you don't have that ITIN or Social Security number. I do recommend, if you're moving forward, get an ITIN. You're going to need it anyway, in most cases, to do your annual tax reporting. You may not owe tax, we talked about that, but you may, in most cases, you're going to still have to file a report. So get the ITIN in advance, and then it makes getting the EIN a snap. You want limited liability protection. You came here for the U.S. banking in a lot of cases, and so you got to get that U.S. bank account open. This is step 4. Through our banking partner, you will complete a streamlined application process specifically designed for foreign business owners. You'll need your LLC documents, your EIN and identification. But the good news is, because of our API, our application programming interface, we have most of those things already if you form the company with us. So we're going to be able to quickly get that information to the banking partner and get you a quick decision on your account. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. I don't know how many times I need to say this. Staying compliant with your company is the crucial next step. You want to make sure that you really get delivered to you the asset protection and limited liability protection you signed up for. If you don't maintain the company by having a registered agent, you got to pay a registered agent at all times for your company. You've got to maintain compliance through filing annual reports for your company with the state. You got to remain in good standing, keeping company records. All of those things, staying compliant, it's easy inside the LLCattorney.com platform. We'll stay your registered agent. We'll get those reports done on time. We'll help you really deliver on the asset protection that you signed up for. There you have it, right? Forming the LLC, whether you're a U.S. person, you're a non-resident alien, foreigner, wherever you are, is super easy. But there is a little bit more time and complexity involved if you're not physically in the U.S., if you don't have a Social Security number, or you don't have an individual taxpayer identification number, ITIN. What I recommend is investigate. Make sure you need to form your company in the United States. There's burdens here, right? There's administrative burdens, but in most cases, those burdens are going to be outweighed by the benefits you get. If you're going to move forward, highly recommend get that ITIN, because you're going to have a bit of a delay in getting that, but then what that allows you to do is speed up getting the EIN process, speed up getting the bank account. It's going to speed up all those subsequent steps. And so you can do it in parallel, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a time saver to get that ITIN and then proceed with the formation of the company. LLCattorney.com is going to make it easy for you to form the company in the right state for you with the right type of entity structure and remain compliant. And we have a team of business success professionals who are trained by attorneys and have a huge wealth of information they can share with you. I highly recommend if you have questions, you speak with one of those professionals to get your questions answered. If you need additional advice that involves a legal opinion, legal recommendations, you can also schedule time with an attorney or a tax professional who has expertise in helping international individuals form U.S. businesses. So if you like what you see here, I really want you to hit like and subscribe for more attorney-backed business formation strategies and videos. And I'm Jonathan Finiak. I'm an attorney. I specialize in asset protection, business structuring, and privacy for entrepreneurs both in the United States as well as all over the world. And I want to help you protect what you built and get the most out of your business.